بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. خب, alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Al-Fiqh al-Istidlali. We continue our discussion about qada of fasting, and as you remember, we had discussion about different forms, different options that we can discuss this issue. We said there are three options that Sayyid al-Yazdi, Sahib al-Urwat al-Wuthqa, has mentioned. The first option was to have doubt about qadha, whether qadha has belonged to you or not, because you have doubt about committing one of those things that break fasting. You don't know whether you have intentionally, for example, eaten or traveled, for example, before Dhuhr, etc. So this was the first option. الشك في وجوب القضاء للشك في ارتكاب المفطر متعمدا. So the reason for doubt is you don't know whether you have intentionally committed one of the muftarat or not. This is inshallah what we are going to discuss today. The second option was you have doubt about qadha belonging to you and applying to you because you have doubt whether something which is obstacle for fasting had happened, so that you couldn't fast and then you have to do it after a month of Ramadan. For example, safar or traveling, marad or illness, or haid if a lady was in period. Third option is shak, because of shak fi baqa'il mani'. Mani was there. Safar, for example, or marad was there, but we don't know whether it continued or it didn't continue. If it continued for 2, 3, 4 days, then it means that I have now 2, 3, 4 days of qadha. If it was just, for example, 1 day, then I had, for example, 1 day of qadha. So these are three options. Now we want to discuss them one by one. So beginning of page 458. Amma suratul ula, which was الشك في وجوب القضاء because of شك في ارتكاب المفطر عمدا. Yeah. Here it is said that for different arguments, for different reasons, we can say there is no need for qadha of akthar. Whatever is qadr mutayaqan, whatever is certain, you will do it. Otherwise, you don't need to do more. You apply براءة. فيمكن التمسك فيها بالبراءة لأحد وجوه ثلاثة, because of one of the three reasons. Okay, now الوجه الأول. The first argument is this, that wujub of qadha follows the main wujub, which is for ada. So you had to fast fi dakhil al-waqt ada'an. So you had to fast during the time of fasting, and this was your main task. Since time has gone, it's over already. So we know that you don't have wujub of ada. I explained this before also, and also in Usul al-Fiqh, that qada is a new obligation. With respect to ada, you have to make sure that you will do it, because al-ishtiqal al-yaqini yaqtadhi al-faragh al-yaqini. For example, if at 2 o'clock you are not sure you said your salat al-zuhr or al-asr, you have to say it at 4 o'clock, because you know that this has belonged to you and now you don't know whether you have done it or not. But qada is a new taklif, new obligation, and it doesn't apply to people automatically. So you have to establish it. If you don't have certainty, you say bara. So al-wajh al-awwal إن الوجوب المتعلق بالأداء داخل الوقت, the first taklif, which is general. إن الوجوب المتعلق بالأداء داخل الوقت قد سقط جزما. This has already finished, it's over, because time has gone. ويشك في حدوث وجوب جديد, not حدوث وجوب, حدوث وجوب جديد. And there is doubt whether a new taklif, a new obligation has now been applicable or not. This wujub jadid is for qada, yeah? It's a new taklif. فتجر البراءة عنه, تجر البراءة عنه, يعني عن تكليف الجديد, وجوبا جديد. خب. Some people may object to this reasoning. وقد يرد بأن استصحاب عدم الاتيان بالواجب في الوقت ينقح موضوع وجوب القضاء. They say, if we are not sure whether we have done ada or not, then it establishes the subject for istishab of adamul ityan bil wajib. Yeah, because you know that at some time you have not done the wajib, you have to do it. So if you are sure that you have done it, alhamdulillah. If you are not sure, so we should assume that you have not done it. We do istishab of adamul ityan. Fil waqt, of course, there is no problem. But this person who is making this objection, he wants to say that we can use istishab adam al-ityan bil wajib fil waqt to establish the subject for taklif for qadha. Because according to this person, iqdha needs a subject. What is the subject? Whatever has not been performed dakhil al-waqt, according to this person. So iqdha, what has not been performed dakhil al-waqt. Now with istishab adam al-ityan bil wajib dakhil al-waqt, you establish subject matter, then istishab establishes the subject for qadha. Okay, istishab says that this wajib was not done in waqt. As soon as this is established, we say, okay, you have to do qadha. Iqdha, what has not been done dakhil al-waqt. So istishab adam al-ityan bil wajib, istishab adam al-ityan bil wajib fil waqt yunaqqihu, establishes the subject for wujub al-qadha. ومعه لا معنى لجريان البراءة عنه. Bara'ah is when we have doubt. Here we don't have doubt. We have to assume that wajib is not done and has to be done. خب. Sheikh Irwani replies to this objection. He says this objection would be acceptable if wujub al-qada was dependent on عدم الاتيان بالواجب في الوقت. In other words, if موضوع for اقضاء was ما لم يأتي به المكلف في داخل الوقت. اقض ما لم يأتي به المكلف داخل الوقت. But it seems this is not the case. اقض ما فات. ما فات is different from ما لم يأتي به المكلف داخل الوقت. And if you want to say, okay, I establish that mukallaf didn't bring this in waqt, and based on that we assume that it is now missed, then we have the problem of asl musbit. In usul al-fiqh, in discussion about istishab, you might have studied istishab is hujjat al-shar'i. Hujjat al-shar'i can be used for hukm shar'i or mawzu' of hukm shar'i. Istishab cannot be used to establish a reality, a fact, even if that fact later may have some fiqhi consequences or implications. Okay, I repeat again. It seems my picture is frozen. Can you see me? Salam alaikum. Okay, then normally when it is frozen, then after some time the voice is also cut off. So let me.
No, the voice is coming.
Okay. So if it stops, then I have to restart. So I continue. I hope it doesn't stop. If it stops, Brother Mustafa, please give me a call. Just ring me. Okay. So I repeat, this is a very important point. Istishab is a hujjah, is a proof, is an evidence which is established religiously. It's not like yaqeen. And therefore, its validity is only limited to religious matters. We use it for ahkam or mawzu'at, subjects of ahkam. We cannot use istishab outside fiqh, even if it may later have fiqhi requirements and implications. For example, I cannot use istishab to say who is alive. For example, say this person was alive, I assume now he's still alive. No, this is not the area that you exercise istishab. Or for example, if the weather was cold, I assume it's still cold, for example. No. Asl musbit, which fuqaha normally say we cannot use istishab for, is when you want to establish a fact by istishab, like life of someone, etc. Okay, now here there is a discussion whether the subject for qada is ma fat or ما لم يأت به المكلف في داخل الوقت. And in some cases then it will become asl musbit. Let us go by the order of the book. الجواب أنه إنما يجري لو كان موضوع وجوب القضاء هو عدم الاتيان بالواجب في الوقت. يعني استصحاب عدم الاتيان would only be applied if the subject for وجوب قضاء was عدم الاتيان بالواجب في الوقت. So this was hukm shar'i, you can do istishab for it. لا ما إذا كان موضوعه الفوت. Not if the subject of wujub qadha was fault, اقض ما فات. If wujub al-qadha is dependent on fault, then to do istishab for something else which may help us later, but in itself is not hukm shari or mawzu' shari, become asl musbit. Istishab of adamu ityan bil wajib fil waqt. This is not for us the subject matter of qadha. Wa illa kana muthbitan. Otherwise that istishab becomes musbit. Even if there is doubt, إذا جاء الاحتمال بطل الاستدلال. Even doubt stops arguing, so you cannot argue from that istishab. ومن المحتمل أن يكون هو الثاني. There is possibility that subject is fault, and therefore the other istishab for adam al-wajib في الوقت becomes مثبت. وقد يرد الجواب بأنه لو سلمنا كون الفوت هو موضوع وجوب القضاء في الصلاة لبعض الروايات فلا نسلمه في باب الصوم. This jawab wants to again take us back to what was said before saying that wujub al-qadha is based on fault, not on adam al-ityan bil-wajib. Iqd ma fat. So this one wants to say, no, why you say iqd ma fat? Iqd ma fat is for salat, because we have some hadith that would make qadha of salat dependent on fault, but we don't have this for fasting. Law sallamna, if we accept that fault is the subject for wujub al-qadha fi salat because of some riwayat, specific hadith that are in the footnotes, and I will mention inshallah. فَلَا نُسَلِّمُ فِي بَابِ الصَّوْمِ. Suppose we accept it in salat, we don't accept it in sawm, because we don't have any reference to say qadha depends on fault. لَعَدَمِ الدَّلِيل. Okay, what are those hadiths that for salat says qadha is for mafaut? For example, in footnote 1, you have first that Imam Baqir alayhi salam was asked about a person who said his prayer without wudu or ghusl, أو نسي صلوات لم يصلها أو نام عنها فقال يقضيها إذا ذكرها في أي ساعة ذكرها من ليل أو نهار. As soon as he remembers, he would say his salat. فإذا دخل وقت الصلاة ولم يتم ما قد فاته أو لم يتم ما قد فاته فليقضه ما لم يتخفف أن يذهب وقت هذه الصلاة التي قد حضرت وهذه أحق بوقتها فليصلها فإذا قضاها فليصل ما فاته مما قد مضى. Anyway, the point of reference is here at the very end. فَلْيُصَلِّ مَا فَاتَهُ مِمَّا قَدْ مَضَى. So this is about qadha. He has to repeat, not repeat because he didn't do it. He has to do qadha of what has fatahu. Yes, if it was without tahur, he has to repeat it. Ma fatahu. The second hadith again is Sahih of Zurare. قلت له رجل فاتته صلاة من صلاة السفر فذكرها في الحضر. Someone was traveling. When he was traveling, he forgot. Then when he's back home, he remembers that he missed that salat. قال يقضي ما فاته كما فاته. He must do qada of what he missed as he missed, because in safar it's qasr. So even now at home he has to do qada of what he missed qasran, not tamaman, yeah, in the same way which was missed. خب يقضي ما فاته, like فليصلي ما فاته. So it seems that for salat we have ground to suggest that the mawzu, the subject for qada, is mafat. But this person says, لا نسلمه في باب الصوم لعدم دليل. We don't have any dalil to say that in Sawm is qada again based on mafat. So he wants to say qada is based on عدم الاتيان بالواجب في داخل الوقت. ولو تنزلنا, if we compromise, we say, okay, in salat is about fatah and in sawm is the same, اقض ما fatah. Okay, we compromise. Again we have issue. This is not again solving the problem. فلا نسلم. We accept that اقض is based on fault, even for salat. But لا نسلم أن الفوت معنى وجودي. We don't accept that fault is an existential meaning, منتزع, which is abstracted من عدم تحقق ما فيه المصلحة, which when something which has masla in secures our interest like salat or like fasting is not done, we say okay, something has happened, a gap is created, for example, a loss is created, for example, it's existential. بل هو معنى عدمي. Fault is negational meaning, is not existential or constructive. أعني, what is the meaning of fault? نفس عدم تحقق الواجب في الوقت. Fault is subject. We compromise, but we say fault is not different from عدم الاتيان بالواجب. Is not معنى وجودي, which is different from عدم الاتيان, and عدم الاتيان can be proved with istisab, but then it becomes asli musbit. No, we say fault is the same as عدم الاتيان. ويدفع. Sheikh Irvani says this will be refuted, rejected. بأنه وإن كان وجيها, although it's plausible, it looks nice, it looks plausible, إلا أنه لا ينفي احتمال أن الموضوع هو الفوت بمعناه الوجودي. Yes, this is possible. We don't say it's impossible. It's plausible means it's okay, it makes sense, but it's possible. It's not certain. The other option to be wujudi is also possible. فكما يحتمل كونه عدميا فيجري الاستصحاب يحتمل كونه وجوديا فلا يجري, يعني فلا يجري الاستصحاب. If it is عدمي, استصحاب can be applied and استصحاب is for حكم شرعي. If it is وجودي, استصحاب becomes أصل مثبت فلا يجري. خب, maybe you say, what should we do if we have doubt whether it is wujudi or adami? Fault is wujudi or adami if you have doubt. مع التردد, with hesitation, you are not sure. ووجود كلا الاحتمالين, when two options, two likelihood are there, لا يجري الاستصحاب, because إذا جاء الاحتمال بطل الاستثناء. خب, وَمِنْ هَذَا يَتَّذِفْ. Based on all what we said, it becomes clear that the first argument for the first surah, the first option has different arguments. Remember, here we said أما السورة الأولى, which was شك في ارتكاب المفترى عمدا. Yeah, this was سورة الأولى. We said يمكن التمسك فيها بالبراءة لأحد وجوه ثلاثة. الوجه الأول. So this was the first argument for the first option. Okay, so now after these discussions, he says وَمِنْ هَذَا يَتَّضِحُ تَمَامِيَّةُ الْوَجْهِ الْأَوَّلِ بِحَسَبِ النَّتِيجَةِ. So the first argument is complete according to the result that we wanted, to say there is no qadha. We cannot establish وجوب القضاء. وما عدم جريان الاستصحاب يتمسك بالبراءة عن وجوب القضاء. When istishab cannot be applied, then Asalatul Bara'ah says there is no wujub for qadha, only as much as you are sure, certain. خب, this is the first argument for the first option. الوجه الثاني, the second argument. بناء على أن موضوع وجوب القضاء عدم الاتيان بالواجب في الوقت لا يجري استصحاب عدم الاتيان به أيضا. This one wants to say that even if we suppose that موضوع وجوب القضاء is عدم الاتيان, even if we suppose that, still this istishab cannot be applied. Not because it becomes asl musbit, because if it is adamul ityan, if this is mawzu, there is no asl musbit. This is hukm shari. For another reason, we have a specific guideline in our hadith which ulama call it qa'idatul haylulah. Qa'idatul haylula, as inshallah we will read from hadith, this can be drawn out of some hadith, is that any doubt after time is over, you should ignore, unless you are certain. So this doesn't then leave chance for istishab adam al-ityan dakhil al-waqt. Because when waqt finished, don't do istishab. لقاعدة الحيلولة. حيلولة comes from حال يحول, حائل. أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه. This قاعدة المستفادة من بعض الروايات ومعه تعود البراءة عن وجوب القضاء. خب, when istishab cannot be applied, then we go again to Bara'ah. Bara'ah says wujub al-qadha is not established, so you don't need to do it. There's no mani, obstacle for that. خب, هذا الوجه إنما يتم لو استظهر من مدرك القاعدة عدم الخصوصية لباب الصلاة. This qaida initially is mentioned or can be, taken. It's not mentioned as a qaida, but can be learned from some hadith about salat. Okay, like what we had about iqdamafat about salat. This one is also about salat. But if faqih, mujtahid, can do tanqih manat, it's not qiyas, it's tanqih manat, means you are sure what is the subject, then you can generalize it. You can say, okay, any wajib like salat which has timing is wajib muaqqat. You remember wajibat are muaqqat or غير muaqqat. Muaqqat means they come with timing. If after time you doubt whether you have done or not, you don't pay attention to this doubt. Any wajib can be fasting or it can be salah. If faqih can do this tanqih manat, okay, otherwise we should limit it to salat. هذا الوجه انما يتم لو استظهر استظهار means to bring zahir out من مدرك القاعدة قاعدة الهيلولة عدم الخصوصية لباب الصلاة وجريانها يعني جريان القاعدة في مطلق الواجبات المؤقتة سواء كان صلاة أو صوما or Hajj, for example. Hajj wajib has certain time. Okay, what is this قاعدة حيلولة? If you go to the second footnote on this page 459, again we have Sahih from Zurara and Fudayl and Abi Ja'far alayhi salam, متى استيقنت أو شككت في وقت فريضة, when you are sure or you have doubt about the time of farida, in the time of farida, أنك لم تصلها, so you are sure during the time, for example it is 4 p.m. still there is time till Maghrib, you don't know you have done Salat Zuhr or not, or you have yaqeen and certainty that you have not done Salat Zuhr. So either you have yaqeen or shak, yaqeen of not performing or shak of performing and not performing. Here what should you do? Here you have to do it. Sallaytaha, you have to do it. But in shakakta ba'da ma kharaja waqtul fawt waqad dakhala ha'ilun, but if the time finished, now we have entered another time period, there is a barrier between this and the time of ada, فلا إعادة عليك من شك. If you have doubt, you don't need to do it. If you have yaqeen that you didn't do it, you have to do qada. But if you have shak, no. So dakhil al-waqt, whether you have yaqeen that you didn't do it or you have shak, you have to do it. Kharij al-waqt, if you have yaqeen you didn't do it, you do it. But if you have shak, you don't do it. Means you don't have to. If you do it, of course, there's no problem. فإن استيقنت فعليك أن تصليها في أي حالة كنت داخل الوقت خارج الوقت. Doesn't make difference if you are sure that you didn't do it. خب, this قاعدة, as you see, is for salat, but if it can be generalized, then that's fine. الوجه الثالث, the third argument. The third argument for عدم وجوب القضاء when there is شك في ارتكاب المفطر عمدا. الاستصحاب الموضوعي. What do we mean by استصحاب موضوعي? أي استصحاب عدم تحقق المفطر, because مفطر causes problem that we have to do then qadha. You don't know you have done muftir amdan or not, you do istishab of adam, because there was a time that you have not done muftir. Yeah, you don't know this is broken or not. فإن استعمال المفطر قد رتب عليه في بعض الروايات القضاء والكفارة. So this is what we call حكم الشرعي. This is not asl musbit. This is something that some religious rulings are applied to it. Qadha kafara is for muftir, doing muftir. فإذا شك في استعماله استصحب عدمه. If we have doubt about using a muftir or doing a muftir, then we do استصحاب of عدم. وبذلك ينتفي وجوب القضاء. Again, وجوب القضاء will be removed. Okay, so 3 arguments for the first surah that Sayyid Yazdi Sahib al-Urwa rahmatullah alayhi has mentioned. الشك في وجوب القضاء للشك في ارتكاب المفترى عمدا. We said we do براءة for different reasons, 3 reasons we mentioned. Now we have second and third options. Second was الشك في وجوب القضاء because we have شك في حدوث المانع like safar and marad and things like that, like ada, or شك في بقاء المانع. Okay, inshallah we'll continue this discussion next week because second and third argument they take time to finish, and then maybe inshallah next week in the end of the session we can start very good topic also, وسائل إثبات الهلال, how the crescent can be established for the beginning of the month of Ramadan, and of course the same can be used for end of month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Is there any question?
So no questions from my end. If other students have any questions, feel free to ask.
No question?
I don't think there's any questions.
Okay. So we end with Dua Faraj. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا وامن علينا برضاه وهب لنا رأفة ورحمة ودعاء وخيره. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم اشف مرضانا. اللهم ارحم موتانا. اللهم اغفر لوالدينا ولوالدي والدينا ولمن وجب له حق علينا ولمن أوصانا بالدعاء ولجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم أصلح ما فسد من ديننا ودنيانا. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى وجنبنا عما لا تحب ولا ترضى. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وبصرنا عيوبنا وزهدنا في الدنيا ورقبنا في الآخرة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. التماس دعاء. في أمان الله. خدا حافظ. في أمان.